This video is sponsored by EA. So I'm going to run some footage here real quick that I got to work on with EA announcing the new Legend. I really want to highlight it for you guys. So I'm going to run that footage right here real quick. Hello, my name is Dazs. Introducing now...
A hero rising, a savior from the storm.
Sharing Conduit's ability.
Oy, kapatid! Let me take a shot at this one.
All right, I just thought it was a lot of fun. I know it's pretty cheesy, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of this video. This one, the condensed one, I'll upload as a short, of course, if you want the fast information. This one's going to be very long and very detailed. The point of the series of what we're going to do, and I'm going to already highlight this on screen, is we're going to cover every one of her abilities. I've had a pretty good amount of time on this Legend compared to others, and I really want to showcase and give you as many tips so when day one, when she releases, you don't really feel lost. You understand her toolkit and you're there for success. Let us break down each of these abilities, and I have in-game footage as well to showcase for you guys, highlighting these abilities. And also what I'm going to do is at the end of the video compare all the abilities and how it synergizes with other Legends and a bunch of tips littered throughout. So let's talk about first her passive ability here. Savior Speed. Savior Speed is a fantastic passive and a solution for anybody who wants to be a support for their squad but has trouble keeping up. It's essentially a free stim. And I really enjoy this because it has the same movement velocity as, let's say, like a Bangalore movement speed gain. Now, there's some caveats there. The ability only triggers when you have these variables. You have to be looking at a teammate. You have to be moving towards a teammate at least 200 units per second. And the teammate has to be outside of your tactical range of 50 meters. Now, this is a plus side and a downside. The downside is you really have to be far away. You can't really abuse it in close range situations. The plus side is that you trade off the movement for the ability to give shields. So you got to think of it that way. At least you're in range to use your tactical to give it to your teammates, and you should be within distance to at least run towards them. Now, let's put yourself in a scenario where you have a teammate who is playing further away, and you are helping your teammate finish the target, but then you can turn to another teammate and then run towards them. You can do that. Each of your teammates count as their own separate entity, and I don't think a lot of people are going to highlight that as much. This will last for 2 seconds, so you can't necessarily look away, charge it, and then go the other way, and you don't really gain that momentum. You really have to be within that vicinity, and it'll keep going, refreshing 2 seconds, 2 seconds, 2 seconds, and it'll last almost an eternity as long as those variables are applicable. That is a good thing. I guess you could. The only thing I can think of how you can really, quote unquote, over the top use this, if you have two people land opposite POIs, one on the north side of the map, one on the south, and you're in the middle, and you keep looking different directions while you're in the center of the map, essentially. Nobody's really going to do that. But at least it's a thought. We thought about it, how you can use this. So another tip is if you are a Legend who has mid-range loadouts, long-range loadouts, and then you're trying to keep up with your teammates and you're trying to get there, and then once you're there, let's say maybe you're not there to just wide swing them, but you can encourage your teammate, if it's a Wraith, here's a Radiant Transfer, keep on going, I believe in you kind of thing, you know? So some positives there. Now, let's segue next to her tactical ability, Radiant Transfer. You're going to have a lot more details here, I'm confident, than any other video that you're going to find. Now, the point of this tactical, it's like a reverse Watson. I did a video with Ross on the Soar Apex channel. We're talking about how it's like opposite. So she has the ability to give shields. What's interesting about the shield gain is just how much it provides. Now, once you press it, it pretty much can be used at any range. As long as they're within 50 meters, if they break the 50 meters range, they instantly start charging their shield. Now, it's more time-based, so you have a certain amount of time that it is open for. And once that window is closed, then it no longer charges. So you have to be smart whenever you use it. It's not a hold down thing. You just press it. Don't think about it. You can heal. You can shoot. You can reload. You can do almost just about anything. But you have to keep in mind that they have to be just within range. Just the initial part of it. So I'm going to highlight here is a Valkyrie. I hit her with the tactical, and she flew away well beyond my range, and she's still healing up. Now, the heal can go all the way from 0, pretty much from 0 red armor, and I'm going to highlight that here on screen, and you go all the way up to 125. It's really insane just how that works and how much it actually applies in getting you full. Now, the unfortunate part is that it does stop when you take damage. The regen is paused, and you receive damage, it pauses for 1 second. Now, you have to wait for 1 second until you can, of no damage, until you can bring it back. So, let's break that down again. So let's break down. The regen pauses when the receiver takes damage and resumes after 1 second of no damage. Now let's talk about how much shield rate you get. The shield rate that you receive as Conduit is less than your allies. Keep in mind when you press it, you can be solo queuing and you'll regenerate 8 shield a second, and then at a rate of 16 shield a second if it's your ally. So it's slower for Conduit, unfortunately, but still it has a massive benefit. The temp shields last for 30 seconds and then they drain away quickly. It takes about, there's a little bit of in between time, 2 to 4 seconds. I wasn't able to time it out perfectly of whenever you can press the tactical again, but it does feel like like you could just keep using it, and that it's always there, and to kind of keep in mind. So when you're in a fight, I highly recommend using it, even just giving shield where you can. And keep in mind the benefit and the tip I can provide is to make sure that person has taken significant damage. If nobody's taking damage, when they do finally take damage, it doesn't really matter. And the temp shield is going to show up on the bottom left as a green effect. Now, as well, any shield healing will replace the current temporary shield. It's not an overshield. It's not like Revenant where it stacks. So don't worry about it feeling too overpowered. It doesn't stack. So that's why I say you have to think smart. Think, Mark, think. A little Invincible reference if anybody watches that. Here's an example as we were talking, you know, just to the extreme. I'm going to be behind a wall. Ross, going to zip across. Yeah, you're good. And he's going to do it back at me too, just to show the versatility of this. Look at that. That's insane. It's so flexible. And then you can see the passive there at work. But it's really, really flexible, and that's why it's kind of hard to debunk synergy, just because it works with everything. Everything. It's pretty wild. I think that's what makes it so overpowered. That's so nice. You can be ziplining, bouncing around, and just hit it. So now let's talk about her ultimate ability. It's like having like I say, an inverse Watson. Deploys with a burst launcher of shield disruptors that slow opponents. But the downside is they take about 4 seconds to actually activate. You can destroy these. It's like an arc star and 2 PK shots, or 1 whole mag spray with the R99. The ability will persist for 60 seconds or until the pylons are destroyed. You can hide behind them. You can do quite a bit with these pylons, and they're very effective in a fight. Think of them like a giant wall. They do stack within buildings. One thing I'll highlight later on in the video when we talk about synergy, they kind of break behind doors though. Like they think of them as like a wall. I don't know if that's a bug or if that's intended. Most of the time I kind of assume it's intended. Now the cooldown will start again as soon as the ability is fired. It takes about 3 ultimate accelerants to bring back her ultimate, because it brings 35, 35, 35, so it's about 3 essentially. Now pressing the ultimate will bring up that targeting mode like we mentioned, and you can just fire it. Now another tip is if you look right down at your feet, you can actually fire them in a straight line. I don't think a lot of people are going to give that tip. Spooky and I found that out, so shout out to Spooky for finding that information out. So use them as cover. You can attach things to them. What I'm going to do now is talk about the synergy and how it all works. I think we kind of broke it down, the synergy of her passive and catching up. We talked about the synergy of just making sure you're there for your teammates and the balance between these abilities. But what we're going to do is I'm going to segue to a whole section here where we talk about the ultimate ability and how it works with other abilities. I find it really interesting in how it works because it can hide within smokes, how you can hide behind them, what you can use, how it breaks the barrier, essentially. We'll get into it. I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's segue to that footage now and let's break that down.
Put my ult down.
Let's see if it eats it. Ready?
I'm
Moment
ready.
of truth. Oh no!
Wait, does this mean watch the superior?
Oh man, like that's kind of big. That means like, okay, if we're in a building and I throw my ult down, are these good legends? These aren't good legends to stack. All right, in this section of the video, what we're gonna do is compare Conduit mixed in with different abilities. So let's go to start with Bangalore and Conduit. So we're gonna put some some smoke there. Gonna throw it out. And just want to see what the ultimate looks like. And see how visibility wise, you can't really see it, to be honest. I mean, we can see it because we're teammates, but there's not, I mean, when you run in there, you're kind of getting caught out, you know? And with a Bangle, it's definitely going to stop them. That's some good synergy. I think it's something people aren't really considering. Let's go and showcase if you were utilizing a tether, what that looks like. Let's go and throw a tether here. I think that the tether has a little bit more visual clutter, personally, by throwing it in there. Something to really consider. Mad Maggie, in terms of ball, whenever it bounces off this, it does actually bounce off of it. It is an object, but you can't actually climb them, which is kind of unfortunate. But it does count as a thing. So when you have the drill, it actually does stop there, So I guess if you wanted to pretty much drill it and how it looks. So Ross, if you don't mind, can you throw down a Conduit ult? And I'm going to throw down another Maggie Tactical just to kind of see what that looks like. I want to show the viewers. This section is going to be a lot longer. I just kind of want you to see and kind of debunk a few things. All right, so we're going to take a look at that damage once it pops up. It hits not as... It takes a lot of bullets, man, to really burn that thing down. I mean, it's only hitting for like 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. And it's still not even down. I mean, these things got massive HP, which is pretty crazy. And when it stops, it does about 10 damage per, just as a reminder. I know we've already discussed that, but just a little reminder there. With Ballistic, there really is no synergy. Now, the question is, can you grapple over these? The answer is yes. You can get over these relatively easy, and it won't hit you. If you do touch the bubble a little bit, it will, but you have to kind of touch that spherical look, and it can be a little hard to see, so just as an FYI. You can phase through them. You won't have an issue phasing through these things. You won't run into them. You can put a port past them. That's pretty easy to do. You can jump pad over them. You have a lot of air, but keep in mind if you touch them, it's not like it's going to really stop you per se like a tether. It just really hits and shocks you a little bit. So that's another little good reminder there. You can definitely use a Revenant to bounce over. Just remember, if you don't mind, Ross, go and throw us another one of them down there. It is just a visual clutter that you really have to worry about. And if you're using Revenant ult and you're running through this, it's a lot on your screen. I'm going to be honest. So keep that in mind. And then even with Horizon Q, you can get over it. Valkyrie, you can fly over these. I know it makes it seem like I'm saying there's a lot of negatives, and they do pick up on scan so you can see where they're at. So if you are counteracting with that smoke, there is an option with Crypto.
So I was recording this after the fact, and I mentioned Crypto, and one thing I glanced over as I was reviewing this is, yes, Crypto ult does break Conduit's ultimate. So I'm highlighting the footage here on screen, and then what we're going to do is we're going to segue right back to the synergy with other legends.
With Seer, I mean, you're not going to get too much information. Not a whole lot of synergy here besides finding out where they're at. Maybe you're counteracting a Conduit. Vantage can fly over. Now, the interesting thing, you probably are asking yourself, does this merge with Bubble and break it? Well, the answer is yes. It does actually, well, kind of. It's a little finicky. See how this one, I'm fine? Oh, this one's in the actual sphere and this one's not. Actually, a really good example. So you kind of see that there. The bubble does break its visibility. And if you're trying to damage these things quite a bit, I mean, Gibby ult isn't going to do a whole lot, but I guess if you're trying to stop, sorry about that. Hitting Ross, I'm so sorry, bro. Gibby ult is very impressive. I mean, it does a bit of damage, but keep in mind the timer did run out on those. Lifeline, and I guess most of the support legends, you can really build a wall if you want to synergize with it. You know, let's say I was a teammate rather than an enemy. Having this giant wall, if anybody pushes you, is a really good thought as well. Unfortunately, these don't really break any LOS. Oh, they do actually. Look at that. Consistent there. It actually breaks the LOS if you're in Newcastle. I didn't think it was actually going to do that. So the same thought process can be applied to a Rampart wall as well. Look at that. And use that to push. I don't think anybody has thought about that anywhere in the playtest. Look at that. That's really interesting to see. Of course, the minute you do that, then you get hit by it. But any sort of wall is going to be fantastic for blocking. So you're probably asking the question now, what if I use the barrel to block it? Nope, doesn't work. A barrel does have a wall, but it's just not that type of wall that you want to see there. What about a fence? Well, yeah, of course you can fence these. It's not like a catalyst wall, but if you're putting these fences, those are pretty impressive. Having fences and conduit, I'm going to overlay some footage that Ross and I are actually playing. It is very impressive in a building, as long as you don't have the pylon down. Now, one of them we're going to put together here is having a cat wall and also a conduit ult. So I'm going to put the cat wall, and I want you to try to put the conduit ultimate over, and I want everyone to see what that looks like here. So I'm going to throw that out for us. Yep, go for it. I'm going to put a wall here and see if it can LOS if you take damage. And the answer is that you will take damage, even if you're LOS. So this one right here, I'm LOS, but I'm still taking damage. It'll still hit me. It still knows. So it has to be a physical wall. So you'll still get hit with smokes. You'll still get hit with gas. You'll still get hit with all those objects. Now, some of them I didn't think were going to work like this, but they do, believe it or not. As long as you are breaking through a sort of a wall. Now, this can be a little bit interesting when you're in buildings and how they work and opening and closing doors. Now, this might just be a bit of a bug and something to kind of consider, but if you have them near doors, if you don't mind, Ross, putting them in front of a door real quick for us, and we can take a look. All right, I'm gonna go inside. Now, once they're activated, they can kind of get moved by doors, but look how it's not hitting me. Now, this one's interesting that we found after trying to experiment with it because you really can't move these things. And you're probably asking yourself why we didn't do it. Well, because we know they don't move. You can throw a horizon cue on top of it and it doesn't move it. But for some reason, the doors do a little bit. And then when you're inside, it kind of breaks it. And I don't know if it thinks that this is a wall or something, but it's something to kind of consider if you're frustrated and you feel like your conduit stuff didn't work. It's something that we were testing and we found, and hopefully it's a good tip for you and helps you in your ways. And that really concludes this portion of trying to debunk everything in terms of her ultimate ability. Unfortunately, with the tactical, there is no trying to break it and do different things. It works through many different things. You can shoot through doors, through smoke, through all kinds of stuff like that with conduit. So there's really not much to kind of showcase more besides the fact that it just works. I mean, we can be at a distance as long as 50 meters. It doesn't matter how much is in your way. As long as, can you switch it over to friendly fire? I would like to heal you. And be sure to follow Ross on his channel, by the way. We did a video on the Soaring Apex channel. You got to check it out. So if you want to heal, and you got to be within that distance right here, it doesn't matter how many walls are there. It'll hit. And even if there's an object, a barrel, smoke, it doesn't matter. You have this there. So there's not much to kind of debunk there in terms of synergy. You can be super high up as long as you're within this bubble range. It'll give them their shield. The most important thing to consider with her tactical is just making sure, as a friendly reminder, I'll consider this a reminder section of the video, is just to ensure that the tactical that you're healing something, because once you use it, it doesn't overheal. Just a point that I hit earlier that I want to make sure that all of you guys are reminded about. Some closing thoughts. You see, whenever you have to trust a friend, such as this Nessie here, is that when you're calming to your teammate to heal them, most people are inclined to pop a battery, and it really has to trust your conduit to tactical you and give you the heals, and then trust that your teammate's going to run in to capitalize on that time. So it takes a lot of trust with teammates, and it takes a really good conduit to really communicate that and showcase that's what they're going to do. Otherwise, we're going to end up in those situations in the future where people say, like, heal me, just res me, you know, like in every other classic FPS title. But you got to have that layer of trust. And if you're going to be a good conduit, that's probably the last thing I tell you and that I would leave you with, especially with all this utility that conduit has. And that's why you have your passive. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. I know this is a little different, very passionate about Conduit, really enjoy her as a legend, and I wanted to take a more relaxed approach because we've had a lot of time on her. So it's not like you're coming out with thoughts that are just out of nowhere. We've had a lot of time playing her. Thank you guys again, and we'll see you guys all in the next one.